London story.
We need to start.
Yeah, we're recording. Tell me the GP London story.
See, I mean, okay. 2016, was it 2016 or 2016? So it was GP Kaladesh. And this was like the height of like when Bobby Roode and Glorious was like all the rage. We're like WWE wrestling, and I saw someone either in the side event or the main event, but just in the tables wearing the exact Glorious t-shirt like across from each other, and I was just there like on the edge, just clapping and just shouting Glorious really loudly.
Wait, who was doing that?
There was just two players playing against each other in like an event, just wearing the exact same wrestling t-shirt, and I was like, "This is incredible."
Oh yeah, the crossover is wide, and that was back when. Now Bobby Roode is one of the trainers at NXT.
Yeah,
he's one of the guys who coaches. But yeah, I remember that he had arguably one of the best entrance / theme song to never make it to a WrestleMania.
Yeah, it's wild. I'm so sad. Like, Glorious is genuinely incredible. The thing is like most of the like wrestling entrances, like I love like the not Finn Balor's current one, but like the actual like the
demon.
What's it called? Yeah.
Demon.
The demon entrance, incredible. One of the best entrances. He never does it. He did it at NXT recently, and I was like, oh my god,
they like gave up on it. He was gonna be that was like there was like a couple of different people that were gonna become like the new Undertaker, like mystical sort of like it was gonna be Bray for a bit when he became Fiend, and then it was gonna be
rest in peace.
It was Demon Balor before he got injured, and Vince didn't believe in him because he was only 180 pounds, and yeah. Oh, that's true. He just didn't believe in the guy. He was too small.
Yeah,
but Finn is incredible. I don't know how Finn stays as ripped as he does year round. It's unbelievable. His body fat percentage is 3%. I don't know how he maintains it.
I know. I'm so upset. I'm not upset. He's actually one of my favorite wrestlers. Like genuinely, like him, AJ, Bryan Danielson.
Oh yeah, I could watch. Like, I could watch AJ in the ring, and like if I could watch anybody's entire work.
Yeah.
History, like all the way through, and nothing else, it would be AJ's. Dude is the best in-ring performer of all time.
Yeah. I think mine would be AJ and Bryan Danielson's would be like up there because I came back to wrestling when the WrestleMania 30 storyline was kicking off, and like when Punk left and all that kind of stuff. So for me, like Bryan Danielson or Daniel Bryan, depending on which side of the fence you're on, like is one of the greatest wrestlers to have ever done it, like sleeved it up. And then like OG, like one of my favorite wrestlers of all time is probably still Eddie Guerrero. Like, oh god, it was so good. And like I get into watching like people like give him credit and like see him, but like seeing old Eddie matches when he was like peak Eddie, not like balloon steroid, and even then he was still incredible. I still quote Latino Heat and Viva la Raza like just out in the wild and hope that
when I was a kid, my favorite tag team was Rey Mysterio and Billy Kidman together. Like that tag team where Rey Mysterio didn't wear his mask, but he was with Billy Kidman. Like that tag team. Like I was a kid and I played all of the N64 games, and like those guys were my jam.
They were so good. I'm so like I love those guys. Like for me, like so I basically grew up during like we had cable. We wanted the houses to have cable because my dad worked for the cable company. So we had cable, so I watched WCW, and then when I could, I would watch like SmackDown on like Sky, back in the day. But yeah, I love Sting. Sting's like one of my Sting is like up there for me as like one of the greatest wrestlers to have ever done it. Like I just like I don't know, like the Venn diagram between wrestling fans and like Magic players is quite wide. Like
why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think it's just like nerds doing nerd things. But I also just think that it's the community around both those like hobbies or interests are very much about community. Like you go to a wrestling show and everyone is like bonding together over this thing. Same with Magic events, you kind of find your people and then you're just like, oh my god, this is so cool. Everyone's also really excited and passionate, which is kind of why I like it. And like I know with like I've always been someone, for people who don't know me, hi, I'm Sahar. I talk about legacy and vintage and, talk about how we should make the formats more accessible and heaven forbid. Oh my God, diverse. My God, imagine having another woman playing legacy and vintage.
You're talking blasphemy here. We didn't, you were invited onto the cast not to speak blasphemous.
Blasphemy, I tell you. Could you tell you're being hosted by two drama people? I used to do stand-up comedy back in the day, so I also know how to talk. Me and Phil together, we gotta have a chat.
Finding the right high-end cards for legacy, vintage, pre-modern, or old-school Magic can be challenging. That's where our friends 3-for-1 Trading come in.
3-for-1 Trading is one of Europe's top Magic the Gathering retailers with an incredible selection of premium singles, sealed product, and even full sets, all available with free, fast, and secure worldwide shipping.
They add fresh inventory every Wednesday with weekly deals and discounts. So whether you're hunting for that elusive piece of power, a legacy staple, or something spicy for your collection, they've got you covered.
First high-end orders over $500 or €500, use the code EDFREE to get free worldwide shipping.
Check them out now at the number 3, the number 4, the number 1.gg/ED. That link takes you right to the shop and helps support the channel.
Huge thanks to 3-for-1 Trading for supporting the legacy community. Now back to the show.
I would say that is actually where I think the crossover happens.
Yeah.
I would assume the position that the reason that people who are really entrenched in the nerd card culture don't like Universes Beyond is because we like wrestling and we like Magic, and a lot of that is due to the suspension of disbelief that we get to assume.
Yeah,
and when you bring in Universes Beyond, it sort of strips that suspension of disbelief because it's not it's not something that is something you get to endeavor into something new. You know, you don't get to get to role play it.
Yes and no, but like there's some Universes Beyond IPs that slap. Like I love Lord of the Rings. I thought Lord of the Rings was incredible. I thought Warhammer was incredible.
Are we going back? It's they said Happy Birthday Bilbo Baggins on their official account, and they don't do anything.
That's because it was Hobbit Day. People forget it was like official Hobbit Day. Like
I know
people
it's Hobbit Day,
Tolkien.
But they're a corporate entity. That's a social media account for a corporation. There's no way that they're doing that out of for engagement and not for product promotion.
Mate, reprint the One Ring. It's fine. Like, who cares? Like, I am somebody who with the UB stuff. If people want to like it, sure. There's some cool cards for the formats I play. Also cool. I'm at this stage where like there's only like I don't want to just jump on and be like, rah, 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 rah. I'm like, you know me, I've always been someone who is like positivity first, and at least recognizing that it might be too much. I understand that. The academic in me comes out and is like, look, we can consider all the options and go, look, there is an objective thing and a subjective thing. But
as the two theatrical folk, you'll be the smiling mask and I'll be the sad mask.
Basically. But we're not talking about UB today. Like, what are we talking about, Phil? I'm here. I'm chatting. Let's get into it, mate. Like,
yeah. So the initial rationale to bring you on was so that we could talk about what would a legacy panel look like? What would the determining factors for something like that be?
Yeah.
What would you calibrate as somebody that the type of figure that you would trust on a panel? Like, what would be the things that you would want in the list of qualifications for somebody to endeavor onto a legacy panel be?
Yeah, so this actually came out, so folks, a little bit behind the curtain. Like, I was listening to your episode maybe like last week or maybe like earlier this week. I can't remember what is time anymore.
Time's a construct.
About time's a construct. Make it reverse a saga, it becomes a 3/3, you make another one, it becomes a 4/4. I love saying that. I love bringing random Magic references into general like dialogue and language. Just like I say sadness on the stack without like any remorse.
Casually, all the time.
Casually. Yeah. Just like sadness on the stack. And then
miss the train.
A sadness on the stack, sadness resolved. So I've spoken about this a couple of times in the past with other podcasts, friends, peers, things like that. I think the question we need to ask, and there's a point you made in like the episode I was watching of, are we at the stage where we need a panel or committee akin to like the commander committee that now what Wizards runs, that are basically the eyes and ears of the community, like, you know, like the CAG, like they had the Commander Advisory Group before we came into Wizards. You know, are we at that stage where we need that? You know, do we think that Wizards do not have the capacity, bandwidth, whatever you want to call it, to do that? Similar to the CAG that for the Commander Advisory Group that was done, now it's turned into like the Wizards Committee, whatever they're called. And I kind of go, okay, what is the bandwidth that Wizards has? It looks like they still have bandwidth. Because I know you guys have spoken about like showing their data and all that kind of stuff. And whilst I agree with you, I also kind of go, how much data do they actually... Like, they have a lot, but there is a kind of, like, competitive integrity thing of like, if you show too much and they're like, oh, well, we might as well show us everything. It's like, no, because there's a level of like data that is, as a game system going to be done. So the data thing, I'm less kind of like, tell us everything, because I'm also like, look, they are, Wizards of the Coast and they have to have that. However, I think that I kind of actually resonated with what you said of like having a group of people, kind of like the Commander Advisory Group, where they are like the eyes and the ears of people on the ground. So it's not a full panel, or in the panel that like the Pauper format panel is, where they ultimately decide cards. It's like recommendations and like, here is the feel on the ground. Commander kind of had it where it was things like that. I think that is like a level where they can do it's like, oh, there's people that we are talking to, whether they are public, not public, to get a feel on how it's going. Now, the real question is do they want to do that? I am not sure. I think that the people in Wizards are still doing that. But I think that if there is a feeling that, we're going to focus on the formats that, we are focusing on. So standard, modern, and then Commander, and then other Pro Tour formats. So Pioneer, if it ever becomes a thing again, or like Arena, whatever.
Yeah, presumably Pioneer is going to come back, because Pioneer is going to be something that they have fully on Arena, and then they're going to want to push that somehow. Yeah, but like that's the format that outside of Standard that is closest to getting onto that platform. So I'd imagine that like once it's there, they would want to push it. But that's fine. Who knows?
That's who knows when that's happening.
Yeah.
But again, Modern is still a Pro Tour format. We have the Pro Tour that by the time of recording is happening this coming weekend. So if that's the focus, and there's so much product that's coming out that's focusing on like the top 2-3 formats, then sure. I think if your Eternal formats don't get that time and attention, then I think a format panel or some form of advisory group committee, I think is probably warranted, because I think with Pauper, I think if they take the stance that they did with Pauper, where it's like, we can play this, we can do this, there's, the barrier to entry isn't that much. But I think my main concern, and the reason why I don't think they've pulled the trigger, is I think there's just a barrier to entry problem. They can't, like, I remember in the last BNR talking about like playing with your cards.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that sentiment, because Legacy and Vintage to a lesser extent, they're not the cheapest formats to get into, mate. With Peace and Love, I know a bunch of us are like older and grayer than we like to admit, but at least with Pauper, you can pay, 20 ticks or $30 or $20 or £10 or £15 to get into the format, where, with Legacy, you're lucky if you're like, like, I think my Delver deck is worth like 4 figures. And like that, I think
ostensibly the like median value of any deck that plays dual lands to any amount is what, like 3K, 4K?
Exactly.
On the low end,
Yeah, exactly. And like, if you're playing Death and Taxes, then sure, we love that for you in these times. I love the Death and Taxes community. Please don't come for me.
Get in the comments, come at it.
Eternal Durdles is proud to be sponsored by Moxfield.com. Moxfield is the best deck building website on the internet. You can find all of my and Phil's decks in links below, including decks from this episode. And if you do, you'll be directly supporting the channel.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, like, I think my argument initially for the data, like, or giving us the data is less so like, hey, you're concealing something from us, and more so that like they are making these decisions or lack of decisions when it comes to what feels as though like any sense of like being attuned to the format the way that the player base is. And if they just share the data, then when they say something, we don't go, what are you guys talking about? At least we would be looking at the same thing, or at least have a better understanding of like where they're coming from. That way it wouldn't be like, because like when they like would speak on the announcement and then come to a decision, I a lot of the time I'm reading the thing going, I don't know where you guys are, and so I can't look through your POV of how you came to the decision to ban Troll over anything else, because to have Troll of Khazad-dûm on the same ban list as Yogg-Will is sort of embarrassing to me. Like, how did we get here? Like, we've made choices and we're here now, and it's like, it just seems strange to me.
It does seem strange. However, you have to, I mean, Attune with Ether got banned in Standards, like I kind of understand weird kind of card choices being banned.
The power levels are a little bit different though, like, because Attune with Ether, that was energy, which was a mechanic that they've, every time they've ever gone back to energy, they've broken it. Like, Energy broke Modern. Energy.
Don't talk about my boy Amped Raptor that way.
I'm just saying that, like, every time they do the alternate resource of any kind, they always bust it. They always do. So Attune with Ether was really just like Dark Ritual replacing itself.
Yeah. And again, it's not. I wasn't trying to badger on Attune with Ether. I think that. Yeah, it's a tough one because I think there's a balancing act, like even from like a game design perspective of like trying to game balance and things like that. I think that it's and again, I love what Joel Dyer was doing with the legacy data collection project, but I think that the fact that data has sort of slowed down in the last like year, 18 months, also meant that we're not getting as much. However, I will push back a little bit on data because I think that ultimately at the sort of macro level of like all the stuff that was a seed, then yes, they can make a judgment call because they have the data. We as players can only have so much because, you have, it's how many matches can, have before you're like, okay, this match is this and this match is that on an individual level. I think once you get to like player level and format level, I think you can track it. But I think that ultimately we as a community have sort of stopped doing that. I think the resources to do that haven't really picked up. So I think a lot of the sentiment around like this card is busted, this thing is bad or whatever, there's a bit of subjectivity around it, but also we don't have anything to kind of say contrary to our voice. So everyone is kind of going, well, this, like the whole oops thing. Like I look at the conversations about oops in a few months prior to this and go, it wasn't actually that much of an issue. And yes, on an online perspective, it probably was, but in the macro level, this is kind of a thing. Same now, I think that Legacy, I'm going to shout out, friend of the channel, Ika Baronin, and, his metagame Mondays, like he looks at the top of the metagame and like, see, it is, it's not perfect, but it's balancing out. Like, and I think, it'll be interesting how Eternal Weekend shakes out in the US. And that can give us and this is kind of what I'm kind of wondering with this one that's coming up in the 2nd of November. Obviously, they're going to focus on standard. But if they are, insightful, they should look at they should just look at, with the Eternal Weekend that's just happened, if like Reanimator is like 40%, which I doubt, I think it's going to be more like 50, then sure. Ban M2, ban Tamio, move on with your day and things like that.
So I have on that, before we start darting around, I actually have a question about that. How much do you think in current Legacy is like as much as there is decks, right? And because they've tried to tag Blue Black Reanimator for the last 3 years.
10,000 years it feels like.
The last like handful of ban lists, it's been Psychic Frog and Grief and Troll of Khazad-dûm, and it's just like it has not moved the needle because the next best thing is just come in or filled those slots, right? Like I think the banning of Troll actually made the current Blue Black Reanimator deck better than it was. Like people couldn't
agree with that.
Trick themselves into playing Troll because they got rid of it. It's like when Lurrus was in the format. Like once Lurrus was available, people then couldn't put three drops in their deck. So everybody's deck was better. So like you were compelled to make the better choice.
Yeah.
Whereas I think that like banning Troll has made the deck better. But like what I want to ask is, there has been a trend that I've noticed when it comes to certain packages of cards, whether it's the Entomb Reanimate Fatty package or the Nadu package, because I don't know if you've seen the trend that I have noticed where people will just take the Nadu shell of Nomads, Nadu, and then put it in with any other list of cards. Like if you've seen Mark Vogt just will toss the package into random decks in 5-0 with it and be like, I just did it.
Mark Vogt is also like, he is like, with peace and love, I love Mark, but Mark will literally throw any busted package into like a 4-color pile deck and say it's fixed. I like the fact though with Nadu, and again it'd be interesting how much Nadu it is, because obviously online it doesn't get that much play, which I'm very surprised by because I think it's a very good deck. In paper, if it's like a breakout deck, like I imagine it might be. But I like the fact that there's diversity within the shell of the packages. I actually like that. It's like the Delver thing, like Delver being in different colors and different shells. It's like, okay, you have black for Thoughtseize, you have white for Swords of Plowshares, you have green for, well, I mean, when I was playing Red and Sticks, and like Tarmogoyf, but and then you play Brûlé to go faster. Like, I think that's a healthy thing.
That's the marker that I like when we're talking about if there was a group of people that could give WotC like the feeling on the ground.
Yeah.
Because if like the argument for moving any cards on and off the ban list.
Yeah.
If the experience of something if the experience is still like, oh, they just cast Entomb Reanimate and it doesn't matter. They just cast Show and Tell and it doesn't matter. So like any of the other pieces that come in and out, it's like you can put anything you want around the Nadu shell, but you're still just getting Nadu.
Yes.
Like the ancillary pieces that are around it are your sauce on top. But ultimately it's like, yeah, you're playing an Urza Saga deck, so like ultimately you're making constructs and getting your combo piece. And that's what you're doing every game. And I wonder if the things to look at are less so the win percentages of certain decks and more so the packages that are within all of these decks that otherwise make it feel as though the format isn't as diverse as it might be. Nadu in all these different packages, or Reanimator and whatever, or like the when you're saying like all the different Delver shells that of old, like
that's of old,
Yeah, of old. But like it may feel as though, or look on paper like, oh, look at all these different decks with all these different like card choices. But really, all of them are Days Wasteland decks plus threat. Like it's cheap threat Days Wasteland. So like we're really playing against the same pattern of stuff over and over and over with different sauce on top.
Well, but I feel like that's been legacy as far as sadly, like, okay, folks, I've not played Legacy for as long as most of my compatriots. I started in 2019. I am the Modern Horizons gamer who came to, discovered Ren and 6 and was like, oh my god, Wasteland Ren 6, hold me. So I am used to that play pack. I am used to that level of like high level intensity. And fundamentally, Legacy is broken. All of Eternal Magic's broken. I hate to break it to you, Phil, but all of Eternal Magic. Legacy is broken, Pauper broken. Vintage, very broken. Pre-modern, also a bit broken. Like, they're all busted because they're all that's where all the cards go into retire. Like, I love Eternal Magic. I think it's genuinely one of the best things to ever have happened in my life in terms of what I've experienced of Magic. But it is where it is broken. I agree with you about the packages, though. I think that, and it's funny you mentioned player experience. For people who don't know, in my day life, because it's my nightlife right now, in my day life, I'm an academic researcher. I'm literally looking at like games research and game psychology. So when Phil says player experience, I go, what do you mean by player experience? Do you mean the sense of, and I'm not going to go too far down the rabbit hole because I don't want to turn this into an academic thing, but do you mean the sense of agency and the decisions players make? Is it the sense about fun? What is fun? I love making a chalice someone. You like terminusing people. What is fun? Someone likes making a 2020. Someone likes Entomb Reanimate. What is fun? Is it about agency and decision making? I would probably people want to feel like they have a sense of autonomy in their decisions and feel like they're competent in what they're doing. Shout out if anyone figures out the kind of academic terminology I'm using, tell me what the theory is in the comments below, because I will give you a prize. And that sense of, feeling like they have some decisions and, that sense of player experience. Is it about, there's a bunch of other stuff I could kind of bat off. So it's, when people say player experience, I fundamentally go, what do you mean by that? And maybe that's a bit of an academic, like the academic in me coming out. And this is why and also you're talking about the packages and things like that. I want to just bring up Vintage for 2 seconds. We both play Vintage and have them.
Yeah,
I love Vintage. I think Vintage is great. But Vintage has macro types. You have Bazaar, you have Sharps, you have Lurrus in the Lurrus is just basically an amorphous blob at this rate. But, you have Lurrus, you have Oath, and you have Aggro. Those are the main ones. And you have Fair Blue at the bottom with Old Man Tinker and Bug just, holding on because
the individual card. The individual card tinker, yes.
Individual card tinker. It's a hell of a truck. And you have I forgot about combo. It's got some Doomsday breaches, POs, and things like that. So you have those. And they have packages within them. They have those packages. You have your full Vicious Workshops, you have your this, you have this, things like that. So I think that the fact that there are packages isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think what ends up, and I think you've kind of said there's your Urza Saga, Days Wasteland, Ancient Tomb, like these kind of packages that kind of make that. But I think that's fundamentally, I think that probably takes it away from like the old, the old where it's like every deck had like its time in the sun. With Peace and Love, like some decks just haven't kept up with like the legacy power level, and it's very sad. Like, I'm not, like, disputing that Dead Guy Ale and Enchantress, were, the best things to be doing. But they are not in 2025.
Could you name what you think? Vintage has Bazaar and Shops and Lurrus, and those are the things. What would you say that those are for Legacy?
So you have Days Wasteland. So I think, sort of blue tempo. You would have Stompy, so Ancient Tomb, things like that. You would have Creature combo. I'm actually, you know what? I'd actually just take the old like Legacy Data Collection one because they basically had it, which was like Green Sun Zenith based, your lands, depths, things like that. I actually quite like the way they did theirs. Oh, I think they had an aggro pile. Stompy, spell-based combo, creature combo. Like, I don't know where I put Death and Tax. I think I'd probably put Death and Tax is probably its own one. But like, I think there's probably like that. Like creature combo, which was like Painter, Cephalid Breakfast, Nardu, things like that. Spell-based combo, your Storms, your Doomsdays, Show and Tells, Stompy, Blood Moon, Eldrazi, things like that. Then you have Tempo, Dimir Tempo, Cutter, I'd even probably throw... Oh, we have Graveyard, of course. So, Reanimator, Oops, stuff like that. Maybe Cephalid Breakfast goes in there, but I would call Cephalid Breakfast Creature combo because it's AB. So I think that's, those are the ones that... And then you have, like, Green Sun, so, like, like lands adjacent. So whether it's, like, you run things like that.
So follow up to that. When looking at Vintage, when they got rid of... Or restricted, rather. When they restricted Vexing Bauble and Urza Saga...
Yes.
Part of their... I see you have feelings about it. Part of their explanation for that was because they're like, we expect that people who play Vintage want to have a certain experience, which is playing their Moxen, playing their otherwise restricted power.
I agree with that sentiment.
And so the cards that we're restricting are to... Vexing Bauble made it so that people couldn't have that experience when they got to play. And then for Urza Saga, they were like, you're running into the pattern of Urza Saga into Black Lotus or whatever too often. Yeah. And so people are not having the Vintage experience anymore. They're having this Vexing Bauble who goes first battle or this Urza Saga battle. And that is not the experience that we know people endeavor to play when they're going to play Vintage. Now, they have a clear-eyed view as to what they want Vintage to be, which is people want to come and play with the power.
It's where all the busted cards go to live.
Do they have that for Legacy?
I think they are getting to it. And I think it is basically I know they talk about, the Days Wasteland shell. I think that the Ponder Brainstorm, ForceofPhil, Days Wasteland, I think fundamentally they will try to protect that at a base level because it is the final place for Brainstorm. And it, yes, I know you can play full Ponder in Vintage, but no one plays full Ponder in Vintage. As much as they could, they ain't got time for that. Just mystical. Yeah. It's far too slow. Whereas in Legacy, you can do that. I think, the fact that you have this space for, you have this space to do that. And I think that fundamentally I hate using tempo because what is tempo? It's like I see the old meme of like this barbaric thing and my tempo and yours is...
I think people mutually understand that even though they've memeified it, that tempo is just cheapest, most efficient threat Days Wasteland is what people understand tempo to be.
When I picked up Rug Delver back in 2019, I went back and played all Canadian and stuff like that. It wasn't good, but I had a lovely time.
The way that people talk about Reanimator... The way that people talk about Reanimator right now is like it's Reanimator, and then you also get the tempo shell.
Yeah, and I think
people know what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And I think back on the Reanimator point, because yes, we have seen it has been on the chopping block time and time again. And I think the cards that have been banned in the context of the banning, and I'm using my words very carefully, in the context of that time frame of the banning, made sense. I understand them. I agree with them at the time, and I still do. And I think the amount of people who could take Frog off, I'm like, guys, please, just no, Habibi. It's just no. Peace and love. No. I think if they are going to do anything to it, I think I think at the stage now we just have to have the chop the head off. But and I think you guys have spoken about the ripple effect. It's like, well, if you chop off if you chop Entomb and Reanimate, okay, then I think that then you're fundamentally killing an archetype and you're killing a pillar. You are particularly, killing a pillar of the archetype. And I think that's why they have tried to have this kind of lighter touch approach to it. Do I agree with it? Not necessarily, but I understand why. This is the thing where when I hear people get very bombastic about it and say stuff, I understand why. But I also am trying to be okay, let's understand, before I became an academic, I was a lapsed corporate. So I've been in those kind of corporate environments, maybe not in Wizards, but I've been in those corporate where you're making those decisions and, there's a bunch of people trying to make decisions and stuff. So you have to try and frame it in that way as well of how much time they got, how much resources do they have to make these decisions? Because again, the games industry, you may have noticed, is under a lot of stress and it's slightly on fire and, all this kind of stuff is happening. So I can't, and Wizards are being worked harder than ever. The people who are making the cards are being worked harder than ever. That being said, I think with if anything happens on the 2nd of November, I do kind of think that something will go. I think they probably will have to chop it off and just kind of go, you know what? We've tried. It keeps coming back. But then there's the ripple effect. You know, Tamiyo is still one of the best things to be doing in Legacy if you are a blue deck. It is the new Delver. Whether you like it or not, I love my Delver Secret. They're hanging out. I got 8 of them. I got foil ones and non-foil ones. I also have 4 Tamiyo. Like, it's the best thing to be doing if you are playing blue tempo. Like, it is the new Delver. And if we accept that that's the level, like we did DRC, if we accept that, like, Tamiyo is the best thing to be doing, then that's fine. Then there's an acceptance by the community that Tamiyo is the thing you do in tempo decks. You play Tamiyo, you practice Tamiyo, blah, 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 blah.
That is part of the you know, I guess to reframe the previous question, where we're saying that, like, we as the Legacy community agree that this is the thing and this is okay and this is reasonable. I don't, when it comes to what could be the influence or the way to communicate to WotC, it feels as though, from my POV, that we should not necessarily be on our own trying to figure out what is that line.
Sure,
like, we can tell
agree.
WotC what that line is, but I feel like in the same way that WotC made the delineation for Vintage of what the line is, which is we want people to be able to play with their power, and anything that would disrupt or hinder that to a degree that we're uncomfortable with, we're going to take action against. I feel like they haven't done that for Legacy, which is where every time I read any of their communications when it comes to BNR for Legacy, I don't know what their target is, and so every time they come out with a different ban list, or a different announcement, each announcement feels as though it's an individual thing that isn't actually going towards a goal. And so I don't know what their goal is. So when they say, yeah, Ragavan is too good, but Tamiyo is not, I go, I don't see where you guys are looking to be like, this is okay, this is not. I don't.
It's fair.
You know what I mean?
And you want like a state, you basically want like a stated unit. I will say for Vintage, what little I do know, I think that Dan Musser, before he left, was like in the Vintage like Mitgo Discord and was like, you know, like he was not active, but he was, you know, listening and kind of getting the gist. And I think for Vintage, because the community is a lot smaller, I think you can do that. You kind of know that the oldest format probably wants to where the power goes and all the old busted cards going to retire, and you can still play a free, you know, you tap a workshop and you play a 3/2, and that's the hard. It's wild where you're like, Moxon, paradoxical outcome, underworld breach, patchwork automaton. It's the same field of view. That's why I love Vintage, folks. If you it's just for the sheer power level difference. You're like patchwork automaton.
When Slash Panther was all the rage.
Slash Panther, I played that. I played Eldrazi for the 2 weeks it was good, like back when. And I was like, oh my god, 4 Nemesis, 4 Fortnite, Reality Smasher, Vicious. Oh my god, I was having the best time. I mean, I fell in love with Turbo Xerox. But again, my point with Legacy, I think they have said it, but it's not been as articulate as they did with Vintage, with like, this is where you go play your power. And Boxing Ball does that. And I think, you know, for me, it is Brainstorm Wasteland. Like those, fundamentally, they are trying to keep the blue deck alive, you know, the blue Wasteland Days shell alive in some form or fashion. That to me is like, this is what the format is about, you know, and then there's obviously derivations and other experiences you can have, you know, not everyone has to play blue, because imagine if everyone played blue decks, we would be not having a happy play.
Can I ask, since you have I haven't been on like the corporate decision-making side of any job I've ever worked. I've always been on the workhorse side of things.
There's a reason why I left.
A lot of my questioning comes from like the shake my hands at the you know.
And I appreciate that.
And so I want to, can you assume the role of the decision maker?
Yeah.
Within these things, and I'll ask questions
okay.
and give me guidance as to like where do a little role play as a theatrical folk that we are. So over the last 3 ban announcements where action was taken against something, the choices were Grief, Psychic Frog, and Troll of Khazad-dûm. Grief seems like an individually like unfun play pattern of Grief, reanimate, strip both of your cards. We both have effectively mulliganed multiple times before a game is started, and those games are not fun to do over and over. Part of what that was the part of that pattern was reanimate. And so taking Grief was taking a shot at the Reanimator part of the Dimir Reanimator.
Sort of the old like scam Scaminator thing, which I don't like as a phraseology because I think it's a bit like it's a bit too heated. But
totally
the Scaminator side of it, yeah.
But if you were to say, okay, are we taking a shot at the tempo side of the package or the Reanimator side of the package? I would say that Grief really lended more towards the Reanimator side of the package because the play pattern was with Reanimate.
Correct.
When we go after Psychic Frog to me is going after the tempo part of it. Because it is the snowball thing that was going with the Day's Wasteland that was letting them accrue value by just trading a bunch of resources and then snowballing away. So
I agree.
Those two ban lists, even though they were targeted at the same deck, were at odds with what potentially the goal of either one was.
Correct.
Then going after Troll of Khazad-dûm is back over to the Reanimator side of, well, that was good with Reanimate because you would cycle it, and then you would put a 6/5 into play on turn 1 that was ostensibly unblockable. So essentially it's like, hey, we have to take a shot at the Dabir Reanimator deck. We're taking a shot at the Dabir Reanimator deck as the goal of what each one was. But if we're looking at it like from, okay, well, what are you actually tagging as like a means to solve it? Like, it seems like it's not consistent.
That's well, I think with Dabir Reanimator, I think they're in a bit of a quandary because I think fundamentally, it's interesting you said about the Reanimator tempo. I would actually argue that Troll sort of skirts the line of both because it also puts itself in the graveyard, it finds you land. It's like the Urza Saga thing. The reason Vintage had played like 14 lands and played Urza Saga and was like, Law Revealed, make blue mana. So I think it sort of skirts that. I think fundamentally it sort of broke, putting a fatty and getting a land is like basically like you've spent like no mana, you spent 1 mana to do 2 things. So I understand why Troll got back. I think that the fact that we're not talking about Dimir tempo, which is the, Tamio, Nevergoyfs, Paragoyfs, whatever other stuff they play. We know that then that the tempo shell has a place in Legacy. We know, like again, Phil, you've been around for a long time. I've been around for a fair few years. We know those kind of blue tempo decks as far as the eye comes. Delver was first with every derivation under the sun. Now it's just blue. It's been blue back in the past. I'm sure it'll be other colors in the future. So I think if they're going for something, they have to go for the Reanimator thing. I think they have to go for the unfair part and basically turn the deck back into Dimir tempo. Like, I think you can't have a deck that can do it all. You either have to choose one or the other. Now, fundamentally, and again, I might annoy some of the actual factual Reanimator community with this, I think you probably just have to get rid of Reanimate. I think you can have Entomb, by all means, but you have to pay 2 mana. You have to pay 2. You gotta exhume, you gotta Reanimate dead. Let me not just Shallow Grave, you know what I mean? Like, we have to pay 2 mana. 1 mana, look, Happy Bee, again, the Happy Bees come out. I'm getting passionate. Happy Bee, when it's 1 mana, it's busted.
So this actually makes me then go, okay, if you look at how they curate Vintage, they're like, hey fam, Mishra's Workshop, you get to play that here. You're gonna get to play it here. We ain't touching that.
It is the Mishra's Workshop problem. I'm fully aware.
You get to have it, right. But part of the Mishra's Workshop problem, though, is you'll see just the weirdest things touch the ban list because they're like, look, we understand this is strange.
We get one.
Restricted list. But like they'll say like the restricted list is strange. Like, you're gonna see a bunch of weird stuff on there. But like, it is there all for the same reason, which is because we are the defense attorneys for Mishra's Workshop. And we are
Bazaar Baghdad.
And it's like Bazaar Baghdad. Totally. But like, at least they're clear on that. They're like, look, you're gonna see dumb shit on this list because this has to exist.
4 Chalice of the Void.
4 chalices, but like, of all the things that, like, what you got? I get you. What's the 5/3
Lodestone Golem?
Lodestone Golem.
I love Lodestone Golem.
Right, but Lodestone Golem's on the restricted list. And why? But we know
Moxon.
Why, right?
Because Moxon. We need
because Workshop, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You need 2 workshops, but yes, you need 2 workshops. But
right, yeah. I'm saying that, like, there's a bunch of things that essentially pay for the sins of,
like, Golgari Grave Troll is a perfect example. Golgari Grave Troll in Vintage, perfect example of this.
Yeah.
Like, Troll came off, or Hello Cat. Troll came off, Troll came on, Troll came back off again, and then it came back on. Like, Happy Bee, it's busted.
And so
who knew?
That would then make me go, okay, well, they don't have that necessarily for Legacy. Like, we see, like, supposedly Days Wasteland and whatnot has been the cause of a lot of things, but then there are some things that they don't fall. Like, Tamio has survived a lot of, like, they haven't touched it. No, I get that it hasn't been around as long.
Yeah, it hasn't been around as long. I think Tamiyo is probably fine for Legacy. I actually, hand on heart, I actually do believe that. I think the fact that Dimir tempo is in 25% will tell you that Tamiyo by herself as a powerhouse is probably fine and fits in the same. Look, I remember us talking about this with that Dragon Age Chandler and like going, oh my god, Dragon Age Chandler's busted. And I'm like, yes, it is busted. I think though, fundamentally, I think the reason why people get irked with the Dimir Reanimator deck, and for what it is worth, Phil, I am going to say this on record, it is trending downwards. I know it's saying it's on gold. Also, there's something with data. Goldfish will tell you it's 20%, and then you actually look under this hood, it's like more like 12.
Us talking makes me go that like understand that there's going to be some trending of decks up and down, and like the specifics of like what is happening in each thing as we approach Eternal Weekend and as people try different stuff is like, I noticed that the thing that I am trying to pull out as we talk about like what a panel or information gathering on the ground for WotC could be.
We'll get to that too.
Yeah, it's just like essentially like zooming out to, okay, well, if we were let's say we were amongst the people that WotC was like, hey, give us the information that we need to know. We would be like, well, what do you need? What do you want to know?
Exactly.
Tell us what you need. Tell us your breakdown of like what is the stuff that you want us to communicate to you.
Well, this is again, and I'll circle back, and folks, if you're still here, keep up with us. When you're talking about like the determining factors, the things you'd want, all that kind of stuff, I think fundamentally there is a question around. Oh, for some reason the helicopters have decided to come. I'm fine. No, I'm not here.
No, they heard us starting to talk about like the macro pillars that WotC needs to define, and they were like, Hasbro sent in their thing. They were like, let's.
Hasbro like flew over my.
They were like, we're gonna need to calm this down.
It was like, just like whoop. But yeah, my point being is, I think that, and this is something that maybe we might not know, and it's probably a question that have. But I think that what you want to know is obviously there, and I think that when people talk about who wants to be on it, again, I think I agree with you guys that the people who say they want to be on it shouldn't be on it.
Yeah.
But I think that there is a level between stewardship and being a voice in the community, and like being, when I think Zach said in one of the episodes of like, you play Magic Online, you play in paper, you have different, I very much believe that you can't just have it all be American-centric or all Modo-centric, because that will warp your sense of view. And different regions, I mean, I know you guys spoke in one of your last episodes about, the fact that, it probably isn't as like split out as it used to be, but I still, whenever I play in Europe, I'm like, I'm expecting to play against a Tundra. I'm playing against a Tundra.
So your dream.
Gonna play back again. Someone's going to play back to Bexons, then we're going to be very sad. But, I don't think it's as much anymore, but I still, the lands players are still there, different taxes are still there, like all this kind of stuff. Like there's Europeans have a flavour to them when they play. Same with the Brits, same with the Americans, same with the Canadians, and everywhere else. And then the Japanese, I don't know what they're doing over there, but they're having the best time. My point being, though, is I think that do we want a advisory group, panel, whatever you want to call it, as a way of being the eyes and ears on the ground and the kind of player experience thing? Or do you want it as like a data collection exercise of like, well, based on, I'm not saying do the work for them, but kind of go, look, we're seeing from the, from not data, but like, we're seeing that there is a trend in this kind of deck. We're seeing this thing. And honestly, I think it's more the former. I think it's about being the eyes and ears on the ground. Because I think data can only tell you so much. And this is where the, fun and player experience versus raw stats gets a bit murky with Legacy. Because I think fundamentally, and I've said this before in like both in when I did content, but also I think I've said it on podcasts. I think that a lot of players who play Legacy are a bit older. I think Zach said it, and I agree. But fundamentally, this isn't gonna. I don't want to be like getting annoyed that man shouts at cloud, but it is a bit like, guys, like I know you want to harken back to 2012 and 2015, but also that is 10 years ago. And I don't want to be like I don't want to shout at the boomers and being like, guys, it's a new flavor. But I think like my approach to it is like, this is the world we're in now, and yes, I wanted to, yes, I wanted to improve, and yes, I wanted to adapt, but I also don't want to be coming at it from a space of, I would want people to listen. I want there to be like a community approach to it and kind of share that. And I think that fundamentally as a community, we try to do that, but we don't necessarily have, because legacy data collection kind of, it hasn't kind of picked up speed. I think the vintage community have kind of done it because it is a lot smaller. The matches being played is a lot smaller, so they can track stuff a lot quicker, and it's predominantly online. With legacy, it's not big enough as modern where like it's a Pro Tour format, people are playing it suddenly, but it's not vintage that is small enough. It's kind of put in one place so you can just track everything. Legacy is in this weird amorphous spot where you want to, if it was just purely online, we could just look at the online metrics and be like, yo, cool, ban this. But it's not. So if you're taking Eternal Weekend as like the metric, or like 4 seasons, or whatever event you might be, whatever big event, it's tough. And I can appreciate for them that that's a challenge, because it's like, there isn't enough big events to kind of be like, well, there's like a seasonality to it. Whereas like every 6 months we can kind of look at this. So they have to look at Modo. But Modo also has its subjectivity to it, and kind of, you have to be honest about that. That's why Oops got so much hype, because it's a quick deck to play. So this is why if we're going to have a panel, it's about trying to filter that noise of like the people who are playing deck week to week versus the people who play online versus the people who want to play casually versus competitively. And there is a lot of levers, which I understand why people feel frustrated, because there's Legacy's kind of flirting with a lot of the lines, and it's not completely.
That's it. That's it. I that's what I'm asking. Is that like if it's constantly flirting with that line, I don't know what the line is. If like let's if they were to say like, look guys, we make all these decisions because we're really dancing around trying to maintain Entomb Reanimate in the format. We want Entomb and Reanimate to be a Mishra's Workshop for Legacy.
Yeah.
If so, then like the justification, if they were like, look, we're protecting this part of it, then I could see them going, so we're actually going to go after Atraxa and Grizzlebrand and the big fatties, because that is the lodestone golem to Mishra's Workshop. Right now, we may disagree. We may be like, why are you doing that? That's dumb. But
at least they
then we know, you're going, we understand the logic as to why you're doing what you're doing. And then we go, this is similar to the thing that you have said that you want to do before, as opposed to like, because the last episode.
Precedent for that. I think there's precedent for that.
But not always.
But not always. Like,
right, it's inconsistent.
But Delver, this is why like Ragavan, like I would say like Ragavan, if I had to kind of look on funny enough, the card advantage engines of a tempo deck, Ragavan, Dreadhorde Arcanist, those Psychic Frog would even go under that shell. I think that justification makes sense. I think
Tamio, no.
I don't know. Tamio, I actually don't think has had enough time. I know that's wild to say out loud, but I don't think she's had enough time. She's been how long when she got printed? Like last summer? No.
But when it comes to like the card advantage version of like, it's Renin 6, it's Dreadhorde Arcanist, it's Ragavan, it's
Expressive
Iteration, like all of these things. Now, like these are 2-drops, but like the different things go in different places, right? Like Expressive Iteration branched, where it was like Expressive Iteration was also like in the mid-range, like control shells that were going bigger, and Dreadhorde Arcanist was also in like the Poke Piles, but like Ragavan was not in those things, but like Ragavan was then in an Eternal Weekend winning list with like Planeswalkers as the only creature, and but when they banned those things, they didn't say we're banning it because of this part of what were those cards a problem across everything, or was it in one, like when Expressive got hit, it was ostensibly because of Blue Red Delver, right?
Yes, because it was.
But Expressive was everywhere. But Expressive wasn't just in Blue Red Delver.
I think that fundamentally every ban. I think whenever there's a ban, I think you have to look at it in the context. I think this is where the challenge has been for some of the cards that get banned, because it's the context of the time, and I think that kind of gets lost in the source at times. But on the Reanimator thing, I think fundamentally, I was actually trying to find the ban and restricted announcement, the last one, because I wanted to.
while you're looking for that, I want to pull up like an old example because I always think it's like a really just great like baseline fundamental of clarity.
Yeah.
And also because I have to give a nod to my boy
Sensei Divine.
My Heart and Joy Sensei stuff. When Sensei's Top was banned, right?
Yeah.
It was banned, like mentioning
bingo card,
why
bingo card
when they banned it, but they said that it was because the Miracles deck was at the time too good and people didn't enjoy playing against countertop as like an experience, right? Now all of the painter players that played top, I'm sure were like, well, what the hell? I'm losing my tops for this other shit. But they weren't
yes.
But that's an example of like when they said why something was going, they were clear that they were like, we don't want this soft lock that takes time that people don't enjoy. They weren't saying like we're getting rid of top because of top. They were saying we're getting rid of top because of its home in this one thing.
Yeah, I agree. There
was communication. We understood what the goal of the thing was.
Yeah, I agree. I think also with the last announcement, I think people have to also frame it in the notion that, okay, this was the line I was looking for. I know people are going to go, it feels like Legacy players have directions to go if they want to be successful without playing Days and Entomb together. It is hard for us to disentangle if the reason that the Mirror is showing up a high rate because it is the best deck, or if Legacy is delivering on its promise to be allowing players to play with the same cards year over year.
Let me jump in on that. Days and Entomb has existed before. Like the blue-black Reanimator has been a deck before.
Yes.
And then it became black-red.
Careful study, hold me.
Careful study the whole thing. But Days was in that deck. That was a Days Entomb deck.
Yes, but the threads back then, Happy Bee, with Peace and Love, the threads back then were, and we had Grizzlebrand. Like Grizzlebrand, we love him.
So but that's what I'm asking then, is when they're looking at what they're doing as the charge to like try and make a change, are they looking at like, are they actually going, well, Days Entomb is the thing that we need to be looking at? Or is it like, if they're like, well, we need to take Dimir Reanimator down a peg, and then they're looking at anything that's targeting the Reanimator side of it, should they actually be looking at targeting the tempo side of it? If Entomb and Days has historically been fine when it wasn't playing essentially like the Delver Shell, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think having the tempo...
I'm posing questions. I don't know the answers to these things.
No, exactly. This is where I would... and the reason why I brought up the previous BNR, because I just... People picked apart these paragraphs a fair bit when it happened. And I actually didn't think... I think it was fine. I actually messaged Carmen separately, said thank you for your takes. The people who went after Carmen, no. As a community, Carmen is helping. But I think that fundamentally it is the best deck. And there is a part of me that, having played Vintage and seeing the Esper of Loris, Dimir Loris is the best deck, and going, you know what? It's the best deck. Like, I think sometimes there's a part of my brain that also goes, like, yes, has gone through ban cycles or whatever. But at the end of the point, there was a level where the line that said, in a lot of ways, this is the process working as intended. Like, it's remained the most played deck, albeit a low win rate, small share, whatever, but it's the process working as intended. If we have found, fundamentally, the quote-unquote best deck, like, and people gravitate to it because it is the best deck. Isn't that, like, it's kind of wild that, like, every time we talk about this, I kind of go, but aren't we all searching for, like, the quote-unquote best thing to be doing? Like, for some people? And this is what I was talking about player experience earlier. It's like, are we searching for competition? Are we searching for agency? Are we searching for decision-making? Are we searching for fun? Are we, whatever it's called? And it's different for every person. And this is where I think if we're going to have a panel, you need to, this is what I meant by custodian and like ambassador to the format. You need to recognize and some people go, when people go, oh, you should have like this person or whatever. Like, I have an idea of who I would have. I'm not going to mention names because I think they'll go for them. But it's the people, it's the good people of Legacy and Vintage. Or not Vintage. Vintage is someone thing of it. But, I'll combine them together in my mind's eye. But for Legacy, I think it is people who see the format in a macro level. And it's hard because a lot of us have our own subjective biases. Phil, with peace and love to you. I love you, man. I think you're great. Habibi, folks, let it not be said that Phil Blackman does not want to cast Terminus for as long as you all shall live, okay? Terminus and Phil Blackman are going to have a happy marriage until they go into the sunset, okay? Me, I have my own biases. I love Ancient Tomb. I think Ancient Tomb is one of the best cards to be ever printed after Lightning Bolt, but you recognize that subjectivity, you recognize that bias. but you have to also recognize it in a broader vacuum, which I think you and Zach do on the podcast. But I think that this idea of Legacy delivering on its promise on allowing players to play with the same cards year over year, and this idea of accessibility and, not to say barrier to entry. I mean, we know we have a barrier to entry problem. That's fine. But this is why I think there is this tension point, because fundamentally Vintage has that too, but Vintage kind of, we accept it because we go like, look, this will, you bought 4 Mishra's Workshops 10,000 years ago. You bought 4 Bazaar of Baghdad's 10,000 years ago, and now you own your cards, and that's where you go and play. But also Vintage predominantly online, so it can be kind of regulated because it's in an ecosystem. You play Paper Vintage, like the most I've played Paper Vintage in 1 year, and I call myself someone who plays Vintage Secretary. I think I've played it like half a dozen max. Like the opportunities to play Paper Proxy Vintage, like it's incredible. You get the rush, but with Legacy I could play a lot more, but I still want to play my cards year on year. I don't want like these cards to go or whatever. And if we found the best deck and it is, finding a home, there is a part of me that also goes, the Reanimator problem is just one thing that we're going to be complaining about. And like, yes, it is a thing that's kind of ongoing. And for me, I've kind of not transcended it. That's such a wanky word. But I basically go, look, if you want to have a panel, what do you want us to ask? This is kind of thing you said earlier, what do you want us to ask? And I think for me, it's like, are we fulfilling, and I think when you kind of like, look at a couple of previous things and kind of hear what they've said, I think it is a place for them to play the cards that you have year on year. I think that is fundamentally, you can still play 4 Brainstorm, you can still play 4 Days, you can still play 4 Wasteland. And I think that's, whether Entomb and Reanimate is still that pillar, I don't know. I think
that's what I want. I want them I want WotC to tell us explicitly, like, hey guys, these are the pillars within these are the rails within which we are making these decisions, because we want to ensure that these are the cards that represent what this format is about. And if like people getting into this format know that like this is the Entomb Reanimate format, this is the Days Wasteland format, and all of the decisions we make are whether if there is something that is pushing one of those things over the line, you'll know that we're going to go after the thing that's pushing it over the line, not those things. Workshop is protected.
Workshop is our Baghdad protected. I think fundamentally, I think Days is. I actually think Entomb is as well. I think Entomb in the kind of outside of like Reanimate. The issue I have is I don't want Reanimator as an archetype to die. I think that is I think fundamentally I think there is like, I think obviously I would like them to express it. I think we all kind of want to be like, tell us your macro types of what you want, what you view Legacy to be. I think we're all kind of in agreement. I think a format panel, if anything, it can at least help define that. Like at a macro level, get the people in the room and be like, let us tell you what the macro types of this format is.
And within like being specific within that, if they were like, if WotC or the panel or whoever, the combination thereof is like, look, we do want Reanimator as an archetype to always exist. Then I want to go, okay. But then I want to go, okay, well then what exactly do you mean by Reanimator as the archetype? Is it exactly Entomb, Reanimate, and Big Fatty? Or is it, or is the payoff, the thing that's being put into play, that's irrelevant to what we mean by Reanimator. What we mean by Reanimator is Entomb, Reanimate. And then I would go, oh, okay, well, if that's the thing, everybody who's talking about Entomb going, we shouldn't be talking about that. We should be then talking about, is Atraxa too much? Is Grizzlebrand too much? Because then at least we know, like, oh, guys, Entomb, Reanimate, that's Mishra's Workshop for Legacy. That is here.
If
there's something that's pushing that over the line, now we got to talk about that. And then we figure out what the line is for that.
On a game design level, though, on a sort of, on a game system level, I think that Reanimator as the archetype, I don't think it's going to be Entomb, Reanimate together, because there are multiple reanimation spells at higher mana values. So I think the fact that you can put because also if you go by that logic, every new fatty that ever gets printed has to get that.
Every new artifact that Mishra's Workshop can put in under play on turn 1 is under the microscope.
I mean, sure, but like Piffing Needle and, like half these cards are like still here. Vexing Bauble was completely egregious, Happy Bee. I played it and it was egregious. Like, I loved it. I'm saying,
but like where the line is for that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like that's part of the subjectivity. Like some people Like, I'm sure Vexing Bubble is great for the people that didn't own power, but then they were like, we're not trying to protect you. We're trying to protect the people who have power that go to Vigits to play it. Like, well, exactly. that was a clear choice they made.
Yeah, and I, for what it's worth, I actually agreed with it. Even though I was sad when I was playing 4, but it's not about me. But it was also the subjectivity. I think that it's probably going to be. I think if we see Reanimate again, this is the thing. I don't want to just talk about band talk, and it's like this is like one case study.
I also, when it comes to it, I'm not interested in the band talk. I'm interested in what WotC looks at when they're looking to curate a format.
I think there is probably inside the building a sense of a macro type. I think they can't be. I don't think they're just vibing their way through it. I think there is some macro. I think the idea of Days Wasteland as a shell exists. I think that is there. I think they want to have fast combo. I think they want to have I think the fact that Sahar Microspawn got banned is an indicator that like we want to have Stompy, but we also don't want Stompy going after your Jewel Lance with peace and love. I think that was an indicator. Would I agree with it? I actually do, actually. As much as I love Sahar Microspawn when I played it, there is an element to that. So I think that fundamentally, if we come back to the original points of, the whatever semblance assembly of people that are consulted about the format in whatever capacity, both informal, formal, however it is, I think that's fine. The challenge, and this is something I want to push back on, is anything, and we saw this with the CAG, we saw this with the Purple Format panel. I've kind of, in the last few days, I've obviously I've spoken to a few of them, but also on social media, this is not it's a thankless job. Like, fundamentally, you're never going to get it right. Realistically, there's always going to be someone who's going to be disappointed. And with peace and love, they're Magic players. Magic players think that everyone has all of them think they have an opinion, like it's the bump. Like, I don't want to say the other word, but it's like the bump. So how much exposure do they have? If heaven forbid I was on it, like, you think you think the nice part of the ire of Legacy is going to be like, well, Sahar, you absolutely, dare say the profanities didn't come. So there's another challenge as well of like, the reason probably why they also haven't done it is it's not the easiest job in the world to do. Like, everyone, it's, the people who are on, like Commander, I understand, like, I think, because it is a multiplayer format, there's too much stuff happening. You're asking people, so who are you going to ask? You're going to ask people who also have day jobs? Like, as someone who helped run a European tournament series, it's a lot of work. Like, I think people like, do you know what it is? Again, I'll come back to data collection. Again, shout out Joe Dyer. Love Joe Dyer. Joe, if you're watching, I love you. Because if he doesn't, I'll clip this a bit. I'm just like, Joe, just know I love you. It's a lot of work. To be the eyes and ears and the voice of the community. Who are you going to consult? You're just going to put out a worldwide survey? You're not going to catch everybody. The people that I talk to in London are going to be people that you talk to differently in New York. The people we talk to on Magic Online are going to be different to the people that I talk to in, like, some small town in France. Like, and everyone's got a different subjectivity on how the format should be. And this is as much as I love the idea, and this is why I was wondering about, being helping with the macro types, helping be like more like a collaborative committee, for want of a better word, being like, this is why I like the CAG. I like the CAG as an idea, because it was like, okay, we just want to get a feeling of like how you're feeling about certain cards and things like that. But again, thankless, I think they got some remuneration for it, but it's a lot of, eyes and ears on you. And I think that a lot of players in the Eternal formats, with peace and love to them, depending who you get, some are good at public speaking and promoting themselves, and some, well, are not. And that's a challenge. And that's the thing. That's where I'm like, because some people were like, oh, just get like Bosch, Phil and Bryant to do it. I'm like, that's very American centric. I know for a fact they probably don't want to do it. But, yes, from a understanding Legacy at a whole level and playing everything, sure. But they're entertainers. They're content creators. You and Zach. Same thing. You're making content. You're trying to promote people. Me, I mean, yes, I would be like, sure. Yes, I'm a woman playing the game. I have a diverse view on the thing. But also, like, I have my own biases and things like that. This is where the kind of, it gets spirally. And I can understand why they haven't, flirted with the topic. Do I think they should? Probably. But I think it's probably getting more, I would rather a more informal, like, feedback system where it's like, you know what? We want to hear from you. Like, it's the kind of community management 101 thing of like, you know what? We want to hear from you. Legacy community, we're doing like, I don't know, like a state of the nation, kind of like what Zach does. Just get a feel on how it goes. And then from there, kind of get some takes, take the data, take the player sentiment, stuff like that, and do it that way. Because I think once you have people in front of it, and they are the people that you go to, Habibi, I've been in front of the public light, you've been in front of the public light, it ain't pretty. And I think there's some players, I think people who get that responsibility, I think might not want, they don't want it. And I think they're going to feel like they are having to do things because they're forced to do it. And it's rather than they think it's good. Or they kind of do the, they make a bad decision or something that is actually fundamentally good for the format all in all. But I look at what happened with the Commander group. And I do not want Legacy to go through that because I think fundamentally, as much as the community is an incredible human, and I apologize, I'm ranting, but I'm really passionate about this. I think fundamentally the Legacy community is lovely, but we have some bad eggs somewhere deep. And that stuff will come out. And heaven forbid, like, and I don't want to bring this about gender or like people of marginalized gender. No one should have death threats. And I'm sorry. I think there's fundamentally, as much as we want to make our format a better place, and I do, and if it were a purely community-run format akin to your Canlanders and pre-moderns and stuff, where we could have a council, amazing. But we're not. We're under the WotC umbrella. WotC is looking after it, and as much as they have gotten it not off, but it's like, I know where you're going, but you could do more. Like, that's the thing. That's the sentiment. It's not a case of like, you could do more. Whether they want to do more, I don't know. I wish they did, but I understand that, like, with any corporate entity, there's time and space to do all the stuff. And frankly, I actually am not expecting any changes on November 2nd because I think Standard is on fire. Standard is actual. Like, yeah, I look at Standard, I don't think Legacy is like the piece of piss, and it's
the way I was gonna to close out was I was gonna ask what you expect to win North America, Europe, and Japan, and do you think anything will happen BNR wise in between North America and Europe?
So, what I think will win NA? Do you know what? I'm going to be controversial. I think it's going to be like Nadu. I think it'll actually be like Cradle Nadu came second. Shout out Bailey. I think Nadu's going to do well. I think people don't realize that Nadu exists, and then people are just going to be like, boom.
I think Nadu wins like a lot, and it just doesn't have the same heat because it's not a Deus Wasteland deck the way that Reanimator is, and so like Deus Wasteland is always sort of taken the beacon as like the thing that needs to take action against, and because it's not that, but then it just constantly wins and is in a bunch of different shells.
I do think Reanimator will do well. I think Mr. Forge will do well. I think Nadu will do well. I think those are the three decks I expect to do well. I think those are my three my three kind of heavy hitters. However, if we look at November 2nd and we see how that shakes out, I think unless Reanimator is like 40%, unless we have the Pro Tour, not this one, the one before or like the event that was like, oh no, it wasn't a Pro Tour, it was like a Spotlight Series where VV was like 40%. I think that's the level that people, like, it needs to get at for there to be like serious change. Like, and I think that fundamentally Legacy does, similar to Vintage, it is a cyclical thing. Vintage is the same. Like, yes, Loris is one of the best decks, but it's also has 4 derivations under it. And yes, Loris Control is the most played deck, but it has ways of beating it. I think people get frustrated with Reanimator because it's like, you can slice, you dice, you take me out to do everything. I think that's the main frustration. But fundamentally, once you understand it, you go, okay, well, this is here, but now we have to combat it. And this is kind of my mentality and I'm moving to it. So I think that's going to be the one. If there's going to be any shift, it's probably going to be either one of Entomb or Reanimate. And if they're really going to go for the fences, I think something like Tameo probably goes, because they go, it's being played everywhere. It's in every blue deck. format homogeny, kind of like weirdly, I think they might give the Deathrite Shaman like argument with Tamio if they're going to hit it. Some people say the One Ring, Habibi, let the Ancient 2 decks kind of deal with it. If they hit One Ring, sure. Like I think the fact that Bilbo Baggins Day got celebrated on the WotC site tells me that reprinting One Ring, so I think One Ring's going to stick around. But whatever wins and does well will impact Europe 100%. I saw it last year, Mystic Forge did well, and then everyone turned up with freaking signs and 2 Norods, and you're like, well, poor sad panda. So the deck that, it's the thing that the deck that gets all the heat gets all the attention, so then the deck's going to do this and things like that. So I think that's fundamentally how it's going to shake out. Some people say it's going to be a repeat of last year. I don't necessarily think so, but I do think the shift of targeting one deck will then do that, and then whatever happens in Europe will then trigger Japan and stuff like that. So, but I think fundamentally, I think this conversation was good. I think for me, I think it is important to at least discuss, but I think that there is a lot more things that people haven't thought about when putting together something of this ilk, be it public or not public, to do that. But I think that having a forum to access, I think that's a good idea. How that is executed and implemented, I think that's the conversation you need to have. And also the willingness from WotC to accept that they don't have the bandwidth, which is kind of what I said at the beginning. So kind of summarizing it all, I think that yes, it's important, but willingness, bandwidth, and execution of the panel is a thing. Because I think there are unlike some of the other formats, there is a bit more nuance and different metrics that they have to follow. It's not just like one or the other, like with paper only or online only or like barrier to entry. Like again, if I start adding them up, it just gets, before you know it, we're at 10 things. We're like, Jesus, that's a lot of things to think about. So I hope that helps, Phil. I hope for people at home, I hope that I have given like a broad strokes. I know we've talked a little while, but I fundamentally believe that Legacy is okay. Like I really do actually believe that, because also, Phil, I don't know about you, but the eternal formats for me have been one of the greatest gifts in terms of Magic the Gathering. And I think some people,
we wouldn't be here if that wasn't the case for both of us. Yeah.
And I think some people get so lost in the source, and I'm like, guys, just remember why you sleeve up all your dual lands. Remember why you sleeve up your Ancient Tombs and your Chalice. Just remember something in another podcast. Another podcast done by. They are a 3-mana 2/1 that brings a card back. Shout out Eternal Witnesses. I'm going to shout them out very quickly. But they had Max Gilmore. And they said, look, fundamentally, if you're going to Eternal Weekend expecting to win and not having fun and getting to hang out with people, what the hell are you doing? Last year, and my funnest memories are LobbyCon and slushies. Yes, I played some Magic in between. But LobbyCon and slushies. And shouting at Phil and Zach from across the hall. Like, going, hello! And they're like, oh God, it's the loud lady turning up. And she's like, oh. It's right, I'm going to shout at them when they come to Italy. I'm going to be like, hello! And they're going to be like, oh God, who's this loud woman? I'm going to be like, in more my colourful clothes and stuff like that. But fundamentally, that's what it's about, folks. And if you don't know that, and you forget that, go outside.
Go outside.
Go outside.
Go outside. Well,
go
first,
play paper Magic.
First, leave a comment. Go to our Patreon. Do all the stuff for the algorithm, and then go outside.
Go outside, folks.
Sorry, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to wrap it.
Yay!
But if there was anything about this conversation that like you were like thinking about, that you were like, please talk about this or ask this question, like get in the comments. Let us know. Like this isn't going to be the last time Sahar comes on. Hopefully,
nope.
she'll be back. No,
for you guys, okay. I'm always here.
Always here. So yeah, anything that you guys want to ask, like hop in the comments. Sahar will be back and we can talk about it.
We can chat about it, guys. Again, I'm here for you. If you guys want to find me on the internet, I will be hopefully coming back to content. I am trying to finish a PhD, guys. That's why I've stopped, because I've got to finish doing academia. Please, I beg you. But you can find me, Sahar Mirhadi, Blue Sky mainly now, because Twitter's a hellscape. Discord, Legacy Gambit still has videos, so go watch them, even though they're slightly out of date, but they are kind of good for like entries into the format. And yeah, just like you hear me just shouting about like Magic and Legacy and Vintage and like academia and my cat, which you guys saw earlier, having a little sleepy. So yeah, feel free. Find me. I'm very nice. You could probably hear me before you see me. If you see me at an event, come say hello. You will hear me. I'm quite loud. Which would be good.
And you'll see us both at Eternal Weekend Luca, yeah?
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Yeah, all right.
I'm so excited. I'm going to play I've got to play Legacy and Vintage with the real cardboard. Oh boy, I'm so ready.
It's going to be good. I'm sleeving up all 4 of my tops for Vintage. It's going to be great.
Come join me in the land of tops, Phil. I also
it's it. Oh yeah, I'm spinning tops, but we're doing it the right way. We're doing the way that it was intended, where we're just comboing out.
Is the card Glaring Fleshraker in your deck, Phil?
So it was. I played Mono Blue 4-top Fleshraker at Vintage Eternal Weekend last year, and my final story.
Yeah.
I played against one opponent who he played his stuff, and then he put Vexing Bauble into play on turn 1. This is before the restriction, right?
Yeah.
Puts Vexing Bauble into play on turn 1 after casting all his stuff. I then was able to, with Mana Vault, Mana Vault, which does cost a mana to put into play. I did that, cast the Glaring Fleshraker, cast
Tops.
A Mox Emerald, which got countered, but did make a mana.
It makes a friend.
It makes a friend, which made the mana. I then cast a top, which made a mana. I cast another top, and I knew that it was going to resolve because he was locked out from being able to cast free stuff to counter anything. And so I turned 1 through a Vexing Bauble, and then I understood why people love doing degenerate stuff.
Yes, come join me in the land.
I've seen the other side. I've seen it. I've tasted it.
Come join me in the land of Raker on top. It's a hell of a drug. It's amazing. But yeah, folks, if you see us at Luca, come say hi. Obviously, when we're not playing mid-game, please. The amount of people who come up to me and they're like, "Can I talk to you?" I'm like, "Can you see in a match?"
We're on a clock.
Exactly. I'm working here. But if you see us, come say hi and interact with us. We're very nice. Again, the short, loud Middle Eastern lady in an event is usually quite easy to spot. But come find us, come say hello. And again, if you have any questions and you want to be like, Sahar, I want to ask you about the specific thing, I'm like, sure, I'm happy to ask. But don't be rude. Do not be rude.
No rudeness, kindness, enjoy the tournament
weekend.
Kindness
and compassion. Kindness, compassion, curiosity.
Compassion.
That's all I ask of you.
And it's going to be lovely. I can't wait to see you. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Bye, guys.
Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button.
You can also support us on patreon.com/eternaldurdles, which now offers the new deck donation tier.
During July, the deck donation patrons will get a 2-for-1 special where both Phil and I will run your deck through a league.
I'll play literally whatever you want.
So brew your spiciest or stock us up with a stock list.
I'll literally play whatever you want.
Thanks for watching.